Hello learners, I am Dr. Sunita Dhal, faculty with the School of Gender and Development Studies, IGNOU, New Delhi, and I am also the course coordinator for BGS 002, that is Gender, Science, Technology and Society course. Today we are going to speak about some of the challenging issues surrounding women in STEM, and this is the discussion will be the part of Unit 12. What would be the learning outcomes? After watching this video, the learners, you will be able to address some of the critical questions in women in science, particularly STEM education. These questions include how and whether social reality can be understood in relation to scientific culture, practice and institutions, why conceptions of gender have some meanings in the context of science, how women make sense of their own experiences in scientific institutions, and finally we are going to discuss the question how power inhabits the process of knowledge production and dissemination. What are the major issues in women in STEM? The major issues could be the global and national perspective we have to understand, macro data on representation of women scientists and technologists in science education, research and profession, unavailability of gender disaggregated data across scientific institutions, and women scientists and technologists as leaders and administrators of scientific institutions. So when we are talking about or discussing about women in science, particularly in India, women in STEM, one can also analyze three kinds of questions, not only in the context of India, but in the global perspectives as well. One aspect is looking at or addressing the concern of women's access and participation of science, representation, re-entry and retention of women scientists and technologists in the field of science, and finally leaders in science and technology field as enablers of doing or pursuing science. Now let us look at the international scenario. We are going to just reflect on some of the data or some of the examples when we are going to cover the both international and the national context. The gender gap remains wide in academic careers across countries due to attrition of women and girls at higher level. Girls and women's access to STEM education has been debated across international platforms for action. For instance, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 2015 calls for inclusive education and gender equality. Achieving the 2030 Agenda will require to build a culture of transformative, innovative and competing knowledge building environment across nation state. Achieving the 2030 Agenda can ensure girls and women's access to STEM education and careers, which will become a means to build a competent, transformative and gender inclusive society and also contribute to the nation building. The UNESCO report entitled, and I must emphasize on this report, and learners, you can always read this report online, which is Cracking the Code, Girls and Women's Education in Science, Technology, Engineering and Mathematics, which is published in the year 2017, emphasizes that while currently more women are entering the STEM workforce, still they are significantly underrepresented in STEM education. So that is, here we are making a difference between STEM education vis-a-vis STEM occupation. STEM education and sustainable development agendas. The Declaration and Framework for Action for the Implementation of SDG notes that the focus on quality and innovation will, and I quote, will require strengthening STEM, and I quote, particular attention should be given to providing girls and women with scholarships to study in the STEM field, unquote. The report Cracking the Code, Girls and Women's Education in Science, Technology and Engineering by UNESCO also indicates that there has been persistent gender gap observed globally, in particularly the STEM education and career. The report further reflects that globally only 35% of women represent of all the students enrolled for higher education in STEM education, and their representation differs across STEM disciplines. For example, if you really look at business studies, commerce, engineering, information technology. So, across disciplines, even within the disciplines of natural science like physics, chemistry, biology, geology, geography, psychology. So, the representation of women differs in terms of opting for a particular stream in STEM disciplines. And what are the global and the national context? What are the issues in the global and the national context? One could be the lower representation of women are observed in disciplines such as information and communication technology, manufacturing, engineering, construction and natural science, including mathematics and statistics. The World Bank data also indicates that there are more Indian female graduates in STEM disciplines compared to the developed nations like the US, UK, Germany and France. The All India Survey on Higher Education AISH data for the year 2017 and 18, 2018 and 19 and 2019 and 20 indicates that the representation of female graduates in STEM has increased from 10 lakh to 10.6 lakh during these 3 years in India. On the contrary, the representation of male graduates in STEM field has decreased from 12.9 lakh in 2017-18 to 11.9 lakh in the year 2019-20. Majority of the literature or work have focused on gender gap in STEM. However, the gender gap in business studies is a grey area of research within the field of women in STEM. In India, over the last 2 decades, the enrollment rate has increased from 15 to 77% with a declining gender gap percentage from 16 to 2%. If you really look at the work of Sahu and Clason in the year 2021, they have focused on the stream choice at higher secondary level by analyzing cross-sectional survey data from NSS. The surveys indicated that the portion of students enrolled in humanities declined from 56% to 2007-8 to 42% in 2014. In contrast, enrollment in science stream has increased from 31% to 39% during the same period. Students' enrollment in commerce field has also exhibiting an increasing trend in India from 17 to 16% during the same period. However, the aggregated data reveals that girls have higher proportion in humanities compared to boys who opted to study science in India. The studies reflect that this gender disparity in stream choice at higher secondary level subsequently creating a gender gap at the undergraduation level. In India, the proportion of women in STEM is 37% and the representation in commerce is 45%. The AISH report 2019 and 2020 shows a recent pattern of stream-wise enrollment at undergraduate levels which reflects a positive gender distribution in the STEM fields in India. The AISH report indicates that science disciplines comes as the second major stream with 47.55 lakh student enrollment, out of which 48.3% are males and 51.7% are females. Commerce is the third major stream in which the share of male enrollment is 51.2%, whereas the female enrollment is little less, that is 48.8%. The discipline of engineering and technology is the fourth major stream with 37.27 lakh student enrollment. Proportion of male student is 70.8%, whereas the female enrollment ratio is 29.2%, which is quite low. There are broadly 2 patterns one could observe in India in relation to women's access to science education and career. There is a declining of female enrollment from primary to secondary school and tertiary education, primarily due to socio-cultural factors, even economic factors as well. Women's access to higher education at the undergraduation and graduation level has increased since 1947. Women comprise about 40% of the undergrad students in science and about 30% in engineering, but when it comes to prestigious technical institutes such as IITs, women's share of representation in such institution is low. And therefore, many of the Indian Institute of Technology like IITs have started gender diversity campaign. Even various corporate houses have also started gender diversity campaign in India to bring more and more women into workforce. So also to bring more and more girls into the science education, particularly in the area of engineering and technology field. The share of women in medical colleges is about 45% in total, but in more prestigious institute this percent tends to be lower than the total share. And this has been cited from, the data has been cited from the draft report of a roadmap for vision document in science and technology. In India, women are associated in teaching science. We could have seen that many women teachers are there in the school while teaching science and mathematics, and colleges also. However, the percentage of women in faculty positions at various institutes like TIFR, IITs and ISCs account for 10 to 12% only. So, what are the myths and stereotypes behind, in terms of, while looking at women in science? A meta-analysis of trends in international mathematics and science study, that is TIMMS, in the year 2015, which is an international assessment of mathematics and science at the 4th and the 8th grade, shows that boys had higher achievements in 18 countries with average difference of 9 points as compared to girls who had higher achievement in 8 countries with an average difference of 18 points. However, 23 countries showed no difference between boys and girls in average mathematics skills or achievement. The data reveals that there is no innate gender difference. Girls can also outperform boys if placed or the opportunities have been given to girls or if placed in the right kind of educational environment. The Singaporean school system is challenging the stereotype or the gender stereotype, where girls are achieving higher results in mathematics compared to boys. Math achievement stereotype and math concepts among elementary school students in Singapore also reported that math self-concept, stronger math, gender stereotypes and socio-cultural factors were positively related to math achievement on a standardized test. Teachers are the role models in influencing or dispelling stereotypes in STEM education at early school days, going beyond traditional STEM instructions and use hands-on activities or real life examples or real world examples in the classrooms would ensure that every child has a fair chance to learn science and mathematics in primary school. Let us now look at women in science, some of the macro perspectives. So, from education now we are focusing on a word like in the professional sphere. So, when we look at women in Nobel Prize, and this as the data has been quoted from Vinita Bal in the year 2020-21, when Professor Bal was invited to give a lecture in IGNOU to commemorate the International Women's Day in the year 2021. So, she looked at the women as Nobel laureates or Nobel Prize recipients. Until 2019, 616 awards in natural sciences have been given, and out of which 3% women who received the Nobel Prize. 1932 individuals till 2022 received women Nobel Prize. However, the percentage of women is 6.1%. 222 total individuals were given in physiology and medicine category, and the percentage for women recipient of Nobel Prize is less, which is 5.4%. If you look at the World Academy of Sciences fellows, 1021 total fellowships awarded, total number of women were 117, and women scientists from India were 15 women scientists who became the World Academy of Sciences fellows. This also I found in her lecture by Vinita Bal. I found this slide very interesting, and citation is there, and you can access the book and read about it. Do Babies Matter? And in this it is looking at the gender and the family in the ivory tower. So, for women in academia, said Mashron, and I quote, "At every stage there is a baby penalty. Tenure track female professors also are likelier to be unmarried, divorced and childless than their male counterparts when it comes to science and technology field." Let us look at some figures in India now. So, Santi Swarup Bhatnagar Award is the most prestigious award, and we analyzed the data like from 1958 to 2022. Total awardees were 587 in number, and there were only 19 women winners. In the Indian Academy of Science and INSA and NACI fellows, less than 10% of women have become the fellows till the year 2015. In 2015, Indian Academy of Sciences has awarded 1036 fellowships, out of which 9.83% of women who have received their fellowships as against 90.15% of its male recipients. Under INSA, total 58 women have received science fellowships, which accounted only for 7.85%. And similar situation you can see under NACI. Out of 1626 fellowships, 137 women scientists have granted as fellows, which accounted for only 8.19%. Other fellowships also include, and which I again cited from Vinita Bal's work, which included the INSPIRE Faculty Fellowship, UGC FRP Faculty Fellowship and Ramalingaswamy Fellow. And you could see that the blue line indicates the percentage of male who have received the fellowships, and the percentage of female who have received the fellowships less than 20%, except for the fact that INSPIRE faculty, which is little more than 20% and below 40%. This is a very important report, that is Department of Science and Technology prepared this report in the year 2010 as the DST Task Force report, which represents the women scientists and technologists in prestigious institutes, which include CSIR, DST, DBT, ICMR, DRDO, DOD, ICAR. And you could see that it is an old report, but it's an important report. Therefore, I cited this particular report, and there is less than I think 15%. Majority of the institution have women scientists and technologists, as pursuing their career, and the percentage is below 15%, except DST, that is Department of Science and Technology, and DBT, Department of Biotechnology, and also ICMR. Women scientists accounted for total of 15.3% out of the total person employed in R&D establishment, research and development establishment. Out of these, 41.52% of women are primarily engaged in R&D related activities, 23.34% involved in auxiliary activities, and 35.13% of women are occupying administrative positions. Women scientists heading the scientific institutions in India, where again I cited the work of Vinita Bal, and looking at some of the prestigious institutions in India, that is Indian Council of Medical Research, Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, Department of Atomic Energy, Department of Science and Technology, Department of Biotechnology. So you could see the number are so less as women heading these prestigious institutions. So what are the challenges faced by women scientists and technologists at middle level? So also even as when they start their early career, or as leaders and administrators, and it is not that it is specific to India, but it the global challenges. One, you could read about the double or the triple burden on women, and major loss in numbers between postdoctoral stage to faculty stage, discrimination at the time of selection, harassment at the workplace, exclusion at the workplace, socio-cultural barriers also play a critical factor in terms of not providing the opportunity to girls and women in terms of pursuing their career in science, and gender inequity at the workplace. So here it comes the role of mentor. When we are talking about women in STEM, it is very important that we must also speak about mentor and mentoring. At the beginning of career stages of women scientists, a mentor must ensure that research training is available in all STEM fields. Career is not sidetracked when scientists have interrupted or face barriers in careers to fulfill family responsibilities. Outreach programs, strategies, efforts exist for young girls and women who have interest in pursuing career in STEM needs to be facilitated. Professional societies need to support career advancement of women scientists, and there has to be a network of support exist in terms of providing mentorship and support to women scientists in the field of science and technology. According to Dean, in her work in 2009, peer mentoring is an effective strategy for supporting women in the STEM fields as, and I quote, "it takes the power out of the relationship," unquote. The Indian Academy of Sciences, Bangalore, created a panel for women in science in the year 2005 to be able to attract and retain women in science education and professions. The panel outlined its activities in 3 areas, which include mentoring and to provide role models to young science students in science. We have to really in India create role models like women scientists and technologists as role models, and the best example is Sunita Williams currently and her contribution to the to the development of modern science in the area of space and space technology. So the role model is something that we could feel there is a gap, and therefore providing role models to young students in science is important to support women scientists to achieve their full potentials and to sensitize various sections of the society, which include the family is the primary agents of socialization. So family, parents, school teachers, peer, neighborhood, community, in terms of create, sensitize these sections of the society on gender and science related issues. The Indian Academy of Sciences and the Department of Science and Technology made efforts to bring out volumes such as Lilavati's Daughters, The Women Scientists of India, and The Balancing Act, Stories of Women in Science, comprise the biographies of women scientists to motivate the young women scientists and girls and students in India. And apart from these initiatives, we also have the right policy. So, can the right policy fill the gender gap in India? Certainly, because you have the policies, S&T policy like science and technology policy for women, which promote science and technology based empowerment of women, women scientist scheme, project based like fellowship schemes for women scientists who have had a break in their career. Then you have the internship mode under women scientist scheme. Then the mobility scheme, which the aim is to provide feasible employment opportunities or an alternative career path for employees, like for women employees who are working in the science and technology field as women professionals. And what are the recent or the new policies in place in India? The new Science and Technology and Innovation Policy 2020 for women scientists, and you have Kiran during the 12th 5-year plan, the consolidation of all women oriented scheme, like the earlier scheme which we just discussed in the previous slide. These schemes were carried out under the DST, and the term was given as Kiran, which means knowledge involvement in research advancement through nurturing. The primary objectives of Kiran were to utilize the potential of women scientists and technologists in science and technology promotion, research and dissemination. And the most recent scheme is Gati, which is gender advancement for transforming institution, which means that how do we bring about gender equity within the microclimate of the institution or the scientific institutions, which will have a positive impact in terms of reducing discrimination, gender based discrimination across institutions. So, what more we can do at the end, we can just discuss what to be done. One is addressing the question of gender equity, Women scientists need to engage with science, culture and practice critically, creating opportunities for women in leadership positions, providing opportunity, positive discrimination and or affirmative action, equal partnership and sharing responsibility both in family, motherhood and marriage, safe work and environment, and certainly the institution of POSH committee, that is Prevention of Sexual Harassment Committee for gender-based, to address the gender-based discrimination across institutions and corporate houses. And with this, you can look at some of the references which I have referred. However, the texts are also available in Unit 12 of BGS 002 course. And I thank all of you for watching the video. Thank you.